What's more haunting than a final plea for help? Ever wondered what the last moments of a celebrity's life sound like? The desperate voices on the other end of emergency calls reveal raw emotion and panic that no Hollywood script could capture. Number 7. Prince. Yes, it's Prince. The world lost a musical genius on April 21, 2016. Prince Rogers Nelson, known simply as Prince to his millions of fans, was found unresponsive in an elevator at his Paisley Park estate in Minnesota. The 911 call that reported his death is disturbing in its confusion and uncertainty. An unidentified male caller at Paisley Park initially seemed reluctant to reveal exactly who needed emergency assistance. When the dispatcher asked for the address, the caller provided it but seemed disoriented. The dispatcher had to repeatedly ask for details about the emergency. Finally, the caller admitted, "Yes, it's Prince." There was something eerie about how the caller hesitated to name the legendary musician, as if saying it out loud would make the tragedy real. The caller described the situation: "The person is dead here." When asked if he knew how the person died, the caller simply responded, I don't know." The uncertainty in his voice conveyed the shock that would soon ripple through the music world. The dispatcher tried to guide the caller through CPR instructions, but it was already too late. What makes this call particularly chilling is the contrast between Prince's larger-than-life persona and the small, confused voice reporting his death. Prince had been a cultural icon since the 1980s, revolutionizing music with hits like Purple Rain and When Doves Cry. His boundary-pushing artistry and flamboyant stage presence had made him seem almost immortal to fans. Later investigations revealed that Prince died from an accidental overdose of fentanyl, a powerful synthetic opioid. Reports emerged that the artist had been struggling with pain medications for years due to hip and ankle problems from his energetic performances. The 911 call captured that moment when one of music's brightest stars was extinguished, leaving only questions about how such a private person could have been suffering so deeply without more intervention. Number 6. Whitney Houston. This is security from the Beverly Hilton. February 11, 2012 was supposed to be a celebration in the music industry with the upcoming Grammy Awards. Instead, it became a day of mourning when Whitney Houston, one of the greatest vocalists of all time, was found dead in her bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. The 911 call came from a security guard at the hotel. I need paramedics. Apparently, I've got a 46-year-old female found in the bathroom, the caller stated with professional detachment. When asked if the woman was conscious, he replied, apparently she wasn't breathing and the person who called me was irate and I couldn't get much out of her. The clinical tone of the call belies the tragedy unfolding, one of music's most powerful voices silenced forever. What makes this call particularly disturbing is the contrast between the calm, procedural nature of the security guard's report and the cultural magnitude of what was happening. Whitney Houston had defined an era with songs like I Will Always Love You and Greatest Love of All. Her voice had inspired generations of singers. Yet her final moments were reported with the same protocol as any other hotel emergency. The circumstances surrounding Houston's death later revealed the darker side of fame. The coroner's report indicated that she had drowned in the bathtub, with heart disease and cocaine use listed as contributing factors. Various prescription medications were found in her room. For years, Houston had publicly struggled with substance abuse issues, even acknowledging them in a famous 2002 interview with Diane Sawyer. The 911 call serves as a stark reminder of how even those who seem to have everything can fall victim to their demons. The security guard had no idea that his routine call would mark the end of a musical legend's life and the beginning of an outpouring of grief from fans worldwide. Perhaps most heartbreaking was that Houston's daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, would die under eerily similar circumstances just 3 years later. Number 5. Michael Jackson. He's not breathing. June 25, 2009 marked the day the king of pop took his final bow. Michael Jackson, arguably the most famous entertainer in the world, died in his rented mansion in Los Angeles. The 911 call from his personal physician's assistant captures the panic and confusion of those final moments. "We have a gentleman here that needs help and he's not breathing," the caller told the dispatcher. The urgency in his voice escalated as he explained that a doctor was present but needed assistance. "He's pumping his chest, but he's not responding to anything," the caller continued, describing resuscitation efforts that would ultimately prove futile. What's particularly disturbing about this call is the knowledge that Jackson's doctor, Conrad Murray, was later convicted of involuntary manslaughter for administering the propofol that caused Jackson's death. The call represents not just the end of a brilliant artistic career, but also raises questions about the people entrusted with celebrities' care. The dispatcher tried to guide the caller through CPR instructions, unaware that a physician was already present. There's a surreal quality to the exchange, considering that the person dying was one of the most recognizable faces on the planet, a man who had revolutionized music videos, broken racial barriers on MTV, and sold hundreds of millions of albums worldwide. Jackson had been preparing for his This Is It comeback tour, scheduled to begin just weeks after his death. The pressure of returning to the stage after years of relative seclusion may have contributed to his anxiety and sleep problems, for which he was receiving medication. The 911 call captures the moment when the hopes of millions of fans waiting to see Jackson perform again were dashed forever. Perhaps most heartbreaking about the call is knowing that Jackson's children were in the house as the emergency unfolded. The caller can be heard instructing someone to get the children out of the room, a reminder that beyond the iconic status and controversial life, Michael Jackson was a father whose kids were about to lose their parent in tragic circumstances. Number 4. Robin Williams, suicide by hanging. August 11, 2014 brought shocking news that seemed impossible to comprehend. Beloved actor and comedian Robin Williams had taken his own life at his home in Paradise Key, California. The 911 call reporting his death is brief but devastating in its simplicity. Male subject, suicide by hanging, the dispatcher relayed to emergency responders. Those 5 words announced the end of one of Hollywood's most brilliant minds, a man who had brought laughter to millions through films like Mrs. Doubtfire, Good Will Hunting, and Dead Poets Society. What makes this call particularly chilling is its stark contrast with Williams' public persona. For decades, he had been known for his manic energy, rapid-fire humor, and boundless creativity. To imagine that same vibrant spirit making the decision to end his life is jarring. The call doesn't capture Williams' voice, it's too late for that, but instead represents the void left by his absence. Williams' death prompted new conversations about depression, addiction, and mental health. Later reports revealed that the comedian had been struggling with early-stage Parkinson's disease and Lewy body dementia, a progressive brain disorder that can cause hallucinations and mood changes. His widow, Susan Schneider Williams, later described it as the terrorist inside my husband's brain. The brevity of the 911 call seems almost cruel given Williams' expansive impact on entertainment and culture. This was a man who had made millions laugh until they cried, who had delivered performances of remarkable depth and vulnerability, reduced to a dispatched code for first responders. The call serves as a tragic reminder that inner demons can sometimes overwhelm even those who seem most full of life. What followed Williams' death was an unprecedented outpouring of grief on social media and beyond. Impromptu memorials appeared at locations associated with his films, particularly the bench in Boston's Public Garden featured in Good Will Hunting. President Obama issued a statement saying he was one of a kind, while fans worldwide shared their favorite Williams moments and quotes. The 911 call marked not just the end of his life but the beginning of a collective mourning for an irreplaceable talent. Number 3. Heath Ledger, He's Not Breathing. January 22, 2008 sent shockwaves through Hollywood when rising star Heath Ledger was found unresponsive in his Manhattan apartment. The 911 call came from his housekeeper and a massage therapist who had arrived for an appointment with the actor. "Please, he's not breathing, please come," the distraught caller told the dispatcher. The panic in her voice is palpable as she struggles to provide the address and details of the emergency. The massage therapist had arrived to find Ledger naked and unresponsive in his bed. In confusion and desperation, she called Mary Kate Olsen, whom Ledger had been dating, before contacting emergency services. What makes this call particularly disturbing is the knowledge that Ledger was on the cusp of unprecedented fame. He had recently completed filming his role as the Joker in The Dark Knight, a performance that would later win him a posthumous Academy Award. The contrast between his career's brilliant trajectory and the frantic voice reporting his death creates a haunting juxtaposition. The call captures the helplessness of those present. When asked if Ledger is breathing, the caller repeats, "I don't know, I don't know, I don't know," her voice cracking with emotion. The dispatcher attempts to guide her through CPR, but by the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. Ledger was pronounced dead at the scene, just 28 years old. Subsequent investigation revealed that Ledger died from an accidental overdose of prescription medications, including painkillers, anxiety drugs, and sleep aids. Friends later spoke about his trouble sleeping during and after filming The Dark Knight, where his immersive approach to playing the Joker had taken a psychological toll. The 911 call represents the tragic moment when one of cinema's most promising talents was lost, leaving behind not only unfulfilled potential but also a young daughter. The public response to Ledger's death was overwhelming. Fans created memorials in his native Australia and in New York. His final completed film, The Dark Knight, became partly a tribute to his extraordinary talent. The 911 call stands as a stark reminder of how quickly life can end, even for someone in their prime with everything to live for. Number 2, Anna Nicole Smith, She's Not Breathing and Not Responsive. February 8, 2007 marked the end of a tumultuous life when model and reality TV star Anna Nicole Smith was found unconscious in her hotel room at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida. The 911 call came from her bodyguard, who was clearly distressed. Anna Nicole Smith, she's not breathing and not responsive. She's not responding, the caller told the dispatcher. His voice trembles as he explains that her face is turning blue. When the dispatcher asked if anyone was doing CPR, he replied that her nurse was attempting resuscitation but added with growing desperation, "She's not responding." What makes this call particularly disturbing is the context of Smith's life in the months before her death. She had given birth to a daughter, Danielyn, in September 2006, only to lose her 20-year-old son Daniel just 3 days later to a drug overdose. The 911 call came just 5 months after these back-to-back life-altering events, capturing a moment when tragedy struck again in what had become a very public saga. Smith had risen to fame as a Playboy model and Guess Jeans spokeswoman in the 1990s, later becoming famous for her marriage to 89-year-old billionaire J. Howard Marshall and the subsequent inheritance battle that went all the way to the Supreme Court. By 2007, she was more known for her reality show and erratic public behavior than her modeling career. The paramedics' arrival at the glamorous hotel to find a 39-year-old former model unresponsive highlights the stark contrast between public image and private struggles. The medical examiner later determined that Smith died from an accidental overdose of prescription drugs, including a powerful sleep medication. 9 different medications were found in her system. The 911 call captures not just the end of Smith's life but also the beginning of another controversy, as questions about who was responsible for supplying her with medications led to criminal investigations. Perhaps most tragic about this call is knowing that Smith's death left her 5-month-old daughter an orphan, with multiple men claiming paternity. The little girl who would never know her mother became the center of a custody battle that played out in the media for months after the desperate call for help from that hotel room. Number 1, Chris Cornell, hotel security called about a guest. May 18, 2017 began with devastating news for rock music fans worldwide. Soundgarden frontman Chris Cornell had died in his Detroit hotel room after performing a concert just hours earlier. The 911 call came from a hotel employee, reporting a situation relayed by Cornell's bodyguard. Hotel security called about a guest. They went to the room and the guest is unresponsive, the caller explained to the dispatcher. The call is disturbingly matter-of-fact, given the circumstances. The bodyguard had found Cornell on the bathroom floor with something around his neck, a detail that would later confirm the singer's suicide by hanging. What makes this call particularly chilling is the timing. Cornell had just performed with Soundgarden at the Fox Theater. Fans who attended the concert later reported that something seemed off about his performance, with some noting that he appeared high or distracted. The last song Soundgarden performed that night was a cover of Led Zeppelin's In My Time of Dying, a choice that seemed eerily prescient in retrospect. Cornell was one of the defining voices of the grunge movement of the 1990s, alongside artists like Kurt Cobain and Eddie Vedder. His powerful vocal range and introspective lyrics had earned him critical acclaim and a devoted fanbase across his work with Soundgarden, Audioslave, and as a solo artist. The 911 call represents the moment when one of rock's most distinctive voices was silenced forever at age 52. The medical examiner ruled Cornell's death a suicide, though his family questioned whether prescription anxiety medication Ativan might have impaired his judgment and led to suicidal thoughts. Cornell had been open about his struggles with depression and substance abuse throughout his career, even addressing these themes in many of his songs. The 911 call captures the tragic end to a battle he had fought for decades. Perhaps what's most disturbing about this call is knowing that Cornell spoke to his wife Vicky shortly before his death. She later reported that he sounded different and that when she expressed concern, he said he was just tired. She called his bodyguard to check on him, which led to the discovery and subsequent 911 call. The thought that help was so close yet still too late adds another layer of tragedy to an already devastating loss. What drives someone to make that final desperate call for a celebrity in crisis? How many lives might be saved if we recognize the warning signs sooner? When will we learn that fame and fortune provide no protection against human fragility?